Ready?
Okay.
Set.
Question number 1. What is our mission statement at Westside? Go. Rachel.
Helping people find and follow Jesus.
Yes,
Good job,
Rachel
Rachel.
got it. Awesome. What is the principal of Aloha High School's name?
Matt Castillo.
Nice job, Steve.
Where are our ministry partners located?
Oh, Indonesia, Ecuador, Mexico, and Africa.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Generations Church in Vancouver. Oh, Stadia. Good Friday.
Oh,
There is one more.
Is Perla helping you, Dion? Okay.
Maybe.
So good job. I think they got
Okay,
them all
good job.
today.
There was one missing. It's Food Brigade in Aloha.
Oh, yeah. Our ministry.
Yeah. Who leads our 2 newest church plants?
Mike and Sandy and Nathan.
How long did we meet at Aloha High School? Caitlin.
I don't actually know. Maybe 5 years.
Steve?
4 years.
Yep. When did Pastor Gabe take over as lead pastor at Westside? What year? Caitlin. Wait, you can't answer.
Oh,
You're out.
Tim.
Tim?
2007.
Yes.
Nice. Tim gets it. Another question. Where do our students go to camp each summer?
Steve.
Black Lake.
Black Lake.
Well, no, you're Steven. He's Steve. Name one, just one, of our church values. Ron.
Leave it better than we found it.
Okay. Stacy.
Authenticity.
Yes. Jessica.
Keep it simple.
Yes. Dion, did you have your hand raised?
He's out.
Okay, here's another question. What is our formal vision statement?
I know, but I've already
Let me
answered
check my filing
two.
cap. Hold on.
Go ahead, Steve.
This is my 3rd correct answer, just so you know.
Over.
It's to move the needle of faith in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
Boom. Love it.
Good job.
Okay.
Okay, this next Sunday marks how many weeks we have been meeting online. This Sunday marks how many weeks we've been meeting. Stacey?
8.
8.
Nice. Good one.
What I was thinking.
Okay. What is the number 1 frustration of people during quarantine?
Leaving the toilet seat up. I don't know.
Oh, close. Ron?
Online school.
Yes.
Yes.
Name one of the top 5 companies whose stock has increased during the coronavirus pandemic. Ron?
Zoom.
Zoom.
Isn't this Ron's 3rd answer? What's the most popular show on Netflix during quarantine?
The Tiger King. Ozark.
Outer Banks.
But it is currently the most popular show on Netflix.
Good job,
Okay,
you guys.
good job, guys.
I love our team. I'm so proud of everybody that's serving together at Westside, and really grateful to be gathered together with you today. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule, and I'm hoping and praying, honestly, that today is so encouraging to you that you just somehow get this boost that you can't overcome, that God does something really special in your life. And so I want to talk to you today about breaking free from financial anxiety. This is a thing that's plaguing so many people right now. And I want to start out by sharing these statements I want you to finish. Okay, so we're going to play a little game. Wherever you are, I want you just to finish this statement. This one's from Farmers Insurance Commercial. It says, "We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two." You might go back and rewatch that. Then there's State Farm. State Farm says, "Like a good neighbor." State Farm is there, right? Okay. And then there's one more. Prudential, their motto is like a rock. Yeah, like a rock. And that's, these companies, by the way, these companies do not exist to sell you insurance or investments. You know what they exist to sell you? And they'll tell you this themselves, peace of mind. That's what insurance companies, investment companies exist to sell you, is peace of mind. And that's what everybody needs right now. I guess you would probably agree with that, but I want you to know the good news today is that your troubles are over. Your financial troubles are over. Do you believe me? Well, let's take a look at what Jesus Christ himself said in Matthew chapter 6, verse 25. He said, "This is why I tell you not to worry about everyday life, whether you have enough food and drink or whether you have enough clothes to wear." Wow. Well, today I want to talk to you about 2 ways of living, okay? One leads to panic, the other leads to peace. I can guess which one that you want to experience. And we're going to talk about how exactly do we find these things? How do we find these? Here's the problem. The coronavirus pandemic has put our world into a financial tailspin. Do you agree with me on that? You might have been watching your own investments go take a nosedive. You might have been watching the stock market or the futures or any other measure. This is a world of uncertainty when it comes to finances right now. And I want to show you a little picture, something you might recognize real quick. Check this out. Anybody know what that is? Yeah, a stimulus check, right? A whole bunch of stimulus checks being printed. And some of you, that might bring your blood pressure up a little bit because you're still like, where is my stimulus check? Well, if you're still missing your stimulus check, do me a favor, go to the chat right now and say, pray for me to get my stimulus check. And we will, because we all need that help. Another quick picture I want to show you. Did you know that 9 out of 10 Americans right now are experiencing financial anxiety? That's a lot of people that are experiencing this, and they're worried about things like savings and job insecurity and making the bills and retirement, natural things. But here's the really interesting thing about this study that CNBC posted is that stress levels were the same across income levels. Let me say that again. Okay, people are stressed out about money. Normally you'd say, yeah, obviously it's the people who don't have any money that are stressed out about money. No, that's not true. Stress levels were the same across income levels. What does this mean? Here's the problem with this. The problem with our problem is that money doesn't solve the problem. If money solved the problem, stress levels wouldn't be the same across income levels. They would only exist for those who have lower incomes. And so you and I have to figure out, well, then if money isn't the answer to my money problems, if money's not the answer to my financial anxiety, which 9 out of 10 Americans right now are struggling with, then what is the solution? How are we supposed to find it? How are we supposed to get past this thing of stress? Well, I want to tell you a story today from the Old Testament of the Bible. I want to show you an account of Elijah, this famous prophet, and this widow who lived in a place called Zarephath. Elijah was this prophet who had a history of powerful deeds. I mean, miracles and all kinds of provision and amazing things happen in Elijah's life. And then he gets face to face with this lady who's basically starving to death. In the account we're going to look at in 1 Kings chapter 17, which, by the way, you can find the verses for in the notes section down below. You can open that up and you can see where we're at today, and you can see kind of what we're learning, and you can even email those notes to yourself if you'd like to. But Elijah has just come from a situation where he was being fed by birds. I mean, this is crazy. Fed by ravens. That's what the Bible says, is that Elijah had been fed by ravens. And so, I mean, he's just now come out of a place where God's making birds feed him. He must have this kind of experience that says, I don't know, God's done some crazy things to take care of me. So maybe he had a little bit easier time trusting God when God said, trust me. But the widow, who was just about to die of starvation, had a very difficult time. And I want you to see in 1 Kings 17 what it says. It says, then the Lord said to Elijah, go and live in the village of Zarephath, near the city of Sidon. I have instructed a widow there to feed you. Now, I don't know, this seems a little bit backwards to me. Does it to you? Does it seem weird that God would say, Elijah, you're a powerful prophet, and you've seen all kinds of neat things happen, and I've done miracle after miracle for you, and so I want you to go, and I want you to make a widow feed you. I just think that's like kicking somebody while they're down. I mean, this lady wasn't doing well, and God's asking Elijah to go ask this lady who's not doing well to feed him when God could obviously do that. It says in verse 10, it says, so Elijah went to Zarephath. As he arrived at the gates of the village, he saw a widow gathering sticks. And he asked her, would you please bring me a little water in a cup? The audacity. It says in verse 11, as she was going to go get it, he called to her, bring me a bite of bread too. Now, I'm telling you, like if I treated my wife this way at home, hey, honey, I see you're busy doing some stuff, you're gathering sticks, you're going to build a fire, you're going to do these things, you're doing whatever you're doing. Hey, could you bring me a little cup of water? What would most people say? They'd be like, what, are your legs broken? What's the deal? Why can't you just go get your own water? And then she goes off to start trying to get this cup of water, and Elijah's like, oh, and bring me a bite of bread too. I mean, like, what a jerk, Like, she must have been so irritated. If you go to a restaurant, you ever been that person at the restaurant? You ever heard that person at the restaurant where they just can't stop asking for more things, and they're never satisfied with the service, and they just keep on going and going? Well, that was Elijah in this situation. And I want to talk about why this happened and what you and I can learn from it. It says in verse 12, it says, but she said, now, here she goes. She says, I swear by the Lord your God that I don't have even a single piece of bread in this house. I mean, she's ticked at this point. You could hear her voice raise a little bit in there. You might have heard your mom's voice for a second, like when you did something wrong. And so she's upset there. And she said, and I have only a handful of flour left in the jar and a little cooking oil in the bottom of the jug. This is a sad part right here. I was just gathering a few sticks to cook this last meal, and then my son and I will die. I mean, wow, that's a sad time. That's a sad story. I'm broke. I'm hungry. We don't have anything, and you're asking me to bring you a cup of water and bring you a piece of bread. Let me tell you something. I don't have any bread. In fact, I barely have any flour and oil, and it's only enough to feed me and my son our last meal, and then we're just going to die. I mean, that's a sad, sad story. Well, my question here, and for those of you who've maybe been struggling financially, maybe this will ring a bell for you, maybe this will resonate with you. But of all people in this situation, why would God ask Elijah to ask her? I mean, talk about financial anxiety. This lady had nothing, right? I mean, I started to freak out the other day at our house when we were down to like 3.5 rolls of toilet paper, and I'm thinking, how do we get more, because there's none at the store every time I go. And so she was really under stress. And I want to point out a couple of things. He not only asked this woman for bread, he asked her to make the bread with the only remaining ingredients that she had. I mean, this is a big ask. It's as though he was taking advantage of her, asking her to give her very last, everything she had. He's asking her for the very last resources that she had. And that's where we learn a lesson. I want you, if you're taking notes today, write this phrase down, because I think this is really important. And it is this, is that your treasure is the ultimate test of your trust. Did you know that? Your treasure is the ultimate test of your trust. It's like a tug of war in this situation. What did Elijah treasure here? Well, he probably treasured his reputation. He was a prophet, right? He could ask for things and God would do these miracles. And so now he's in a situation where he's having to ask a poor widow, poor dying, starving widow for something. Why couldn't he? So what was wrong with his God that he couldn't provide for him? And so Elijah's reputation was his treasure. What was this widow lady's treasure? It was her flour. It was his last remaining things that she had to feed her son, and then they were going to die. And I find that your treasure is the ultimate test of your trust. Would you be willing to surrender your treasure to God? It's a scary proposition because we don't know how we can replace it. And that's where financial anxiety comes from. Now, if you are not sure about how you could possibly ever get to the point where you would have that kind of faith and trust, where you could surrender something so important to God and trust that he was going to provide for you, if you would like to grow in this, one of the things I want to encourage you to do is to text the word Bible to 503-905-9067. What we're going to do this week is we're going to send you the link to a Bible reading plan, a 6-day Bible reading plan called Trusting God Through the Trials, learning how to trust God in the hard times, in the lack, in the financial anxiety, in the COVID crisis, in the job loss, in the uncertainty, in the stock market crash, and all those things, learning how to trust God in those times. So it goes on like this. It says in verse 13, but Elijah said to her, don't be afraid. Go ahead and do just what you've said. I mean, I've always thought this was so funny. Don't be afraid. Go ahead and do just what you said. Yeah, eat your food and then die. Okay, go ahead and do that. But he goes, but make a little bread for me first. The audacity. Then, he said, then use what's left to prepare a meal for yourself and for your son. I don't know if he didn't get the picture when she was describing how much she had, but he had somehow in his mind, he had a different proportion of ingredients in mind. She told him that she only had enough to make a little bit for her son. And he said, I want you to first make it for me. He's saying, switch the order, give it to me first. And then he said something that she didn't see coming. He said, you're going to have leftovers. You do this way, you're going to have leftovers. Trust me. Now, I don't know if she trusted him very much in that moment, But he said something that changed her tune really quick. He said in verse 14, "For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says, there will always be flour and olive oil left in your containers until the time when the Lord sends the rain and the crops grow again." What he was saying is, listen, lady, I know it seems funny, but God's about to put his supernatural hand of provision on your life. Listen, if you're watching this today, I want you to hear something loud and clear. If you will trust God in this moment of financial anxiety, of crisis, and of uncertainty, if you will trust God for your provision in this moment, he's about to add his supernatural provision to your life, and you're going to have leftovers. This is exciting stuff. I want to talk about leftovers for a second, because here's what I know. God is not asking for what you don't have. I think that's a misunderstanding about who God is and what he's doing. Sometimes we think God's asking for what I don't have. No, he's not. He's asking for what you do have. But here's the clincher. He wants it first. And he wants you to have the leftovers. Now, in our world, that doesn't make sense, because we always think leftovers means less and worse, right? It's less and it's worse. It's left over. The first meal was good, and then there's like a little bit left over. It's not as much, and then it's old. It's like day old or whatever. But in God's economy, leftovers means more and better, because he's adding a supernatural provision to it. And so I want you to see this, and maybe write this down. If you're taking notes today, write this down. What you do first, listen to this, what you do first determines what will last. Whatever you do first determines what will last. And so God is saying, I want you to first offer it up to me. I want you to first surrender that treasure, knowing that that's what you were counting on, living on. And God is like, but you got to understand, there's trust here. Trust is the point. So it says in the passage, goes on. Let me share something before I go on in the passage. I have a hero, and not long ago, in fact, it was March 26th, somebody dropped off at our house two boxes of pizza on top of a package of toilet paper. I think I have a picture of the toilet paper bandit that came to our house and left these 2 boxes of pizza on top of a package of toilet paper. And then once they dropped off the boxes of pizza on top of the toilet paper, they then drove off in their red car. And I remember seeing the boxes of pizza and the toilet paper and then the red car and thinking, who was that masked man? Who was that masked man that dropped off those treasures to our house? Because, these things are in short supply. And I know who it was. It was my wonderful father-in-law, Ken Wooten. Ken Wooten is my father-in-law, and he is one of our pastors at Westside. He was the pastor at Westside before me, and he's been my main mentor all these years. And did you know something really cool? Did you know that Sunday, today, marks if you're watching this on Sunday, it marks the 45th anniversary of Ken Wooten coming to our church. 45 years of faithfulness. What? Who stays anywhere for 45 years? Who stays as a pastor at a church for 45 years? Who stays faithful for 45 years? Who trusts God for 45 years? Who in their retirement income gives people toilet paper and pizza without even having been asked? I'll tell you, it's my father-in-law, and I'm so thankful for him. He has set the mark for me on generosity. He has set the mark for me on trusting God. That he is a guy that trusts God because he goes, look, I've got experience with this, like Elijah probably did. And so I want you to see in verse 15 what happens in the rest of this story. It says this, so she did as Elijah said. She did as Elijah said. And she and Elijah and her family continued to eat for many days. And I love this. If you're taking notes, pay special attention to this next phrase. It says, there was always enough flour and olive oil left in the containers, just as the Lord had promised through Elijah. Wow. Listen, I know this about the situation that we're in right now. It's a tough time. There's a lot of people who have made massive adjustments and have no idea how many more adjustments they're going to have to make. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people have had to make very difficult decisions about what to scale back on. Some people have had to move and to downsize and to give up things that they had and all sorts of things. Some people are going without. I mean, it's a trying time. But I know this. I know the famine will end. And I know that in the famine, God intends to do something for us that we can't do for ourselves. He wants to do something for us that Prudential and State Farm and Farmers, nobody can do for us. He wants to do the kind of thing that he did for this lady. He never asks us, listen, to trust him without first giving us, number one, his promises. Elijah goes to the lady and says, hey, I promise you, here's what's going to happen if you do this. And then the evidence so that we can trust his promises. So it reminds me of the story of Hansel and Gretel. Anybody seen that or listened to that story, read that story when you were a kid? Hansel and Gretel, they go off into the forest. Their father and stepmother take them out there to fend for themselves. And so that they wouldn't get lost, Hansel drops breadcrumbs as they journey through the forest so they'd be able to find their way back. This reminds me of what is happening here, because what God is trying to do for you and me, he's trying to give us some breadcrumbs, to go like, as you go along the journey, you're going to need to mark the trail. You're going to need to remember where you came from. You're going to need to remember what I've done in your life. You're going to need to remember that I'm good. And sometimes, like this lady, this widow, she didn't even have any experience with God, with trusting God. She had to look at Elijah and go, well, if you say so, if he did it for you by feeding you through ravens, I suppose he could do this for me. And so I am very interested in having God provide for me, and so I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to trust. It's like having experience with God as your father. That's what Elijah had. Do you have it? If you don't have it, do you know someone who does? Could you look at their life? Maybe it's me, maybe it's Pastor Ken, maybe it's someone else that you know, and go like, well, they're convinced that God can provide even in times of difficulty. Maybe I could trust God in this time of difficulty. Jesus said this in Matthew chapter 6. He says, so don't worry about these things, saying, what will we eat, what will we drink, what will we wear? He goes, that's what people who don't know God as Father obsess about. But he goes, no, your heavenly Father already knows all of your needs. He said, so do this. First seek my kingdom. That's what Jesus said. And then everything's going to be taken care of. Wow, that's a little bit hard to believe. But when you're connected with someone who believes, it makes it easier. Somebody once said, in fact, it was Charles Tremendous Jones who said that the things that will change your life are the books you read and the people you meet. It's your associations that determine really your attitude and your trajectory in life. And that's one of the reasons why we need to find somebody like Elijah in our lives. We need to find somebody with faith. We need to find somebody who has experience with God providing, so we could go like, okay, so what did you do? What did you say? How did this work? Can I really trust God? Can I ask you some questions? And we start to build some associations of faith. Well, I want to tell you the quick story of Tammy Bradley from our church, who experienced some amazing things recently. She says, on February 27th of 2017, that was a Monday night that changed my life forever. I became a widow with 3 special needs children, one of which was engaged in a battle of survival from an eating disorder, undergoing daily hospital treatments. We were already several months into the medical treatments journey with my daughter, and now I had to face it without my husband. My spiritual walk was just as ruined as at that time. In my despair, I turned to God. I had never lost my trust in him, but he had always been on the back burner of my life for a long time. God has always provided for me, even when I was not actively seeking him. When I lost my husband, she said, my school district community rallied support for me. People I hadn't worked with in a decade and others that I'd never met before were gathering gift card baskets for me. I had enough meals coming, that I didn't have to cook for 3 months. I was incredibly blessed. During that time, my daughter went back into a residential treatment program in Arizona. God provided the finances to cover the expenses for her treatment through my husband's life insurance. I was able to get our family out of debt at that time as well. The Lord also provided for me at work. My position ended in June of that year, and my supervisor asked me if I had a preference of what I wanted to teach. I told her that I wanted to do something new. Instead of elementary students, I wanted to move up to high school. I wanted a fresh start. My supervisor chose Glencoe for me, even though it meant some major finagling with other staff in the building. She told me that she chose Glencoe High School because of the strong special ed department and administration that was there. I knew God's hand was on me in that placement, giving me a supportive and nurturing environment that would allow me to be successful. I'm currently finishing up my 3rd year there. Our department is planning to cut staffing next year, but thankfully, rather than being transferred, my supervisor acknowledged me by offering me a new program that's opening at Glencoe. It was an honor to be nominated for the position, and that further protects my job. Since my husband's passing, I've joined Westside and started putting my life back together. I began attending growth groups. I began tithing, that's giving 10% of my income back to God. I have felt compelled to host a growth group, but my home needs some major repairs to accommodate this goal, and once again, the Lord is providing. My son recently got an unexpected back payment related to his disability income that's several $1,000s. His monthly income more than doubled at that time. And add to that a generous tax refund and a stimulus check, and we are on our way to getting our home repairs completed. Wow. I mean, Tammy's basically going like, if you need some breadcrumbs in your life, trust me, you can trust God because he's provided for me. Tammy, who became a widow with 3 kids to care for and didn't know where things were going to come from, she could have very well said the same thing as the lady in this account we read. She could have said, no way am I going to share my resources. I got barely any flour left, barely any oil left, and all I can do is collect these sticks so that we can make our last meal, and who knows? But she didn't do that. She was around people. She got herself into a group. She got around some people, and let me tell you something. We want to get every single person. Listen, I'm on a mission. Let me just say this. I'm on a mission. We're on a mission. We want to get every single person who's watching this, into a growth group. I know that's audacious, right? But here's the thing. I know for a fact if you will get yourself into a group of people, and I realize that, right now we're not even meeting in person. We're meeting online through Zoom and other things like that. But I'm telling you it's a difference maker. It's a difference maker for Tammy even right now. She's in Ron and Ruth's group, and she's connected, and she's being encouraged by them. And it's a difference maker for her. I want to show you real quick some hot groups that we have at Westside that are open right now. There's all these different kinds: Food Brigade, Spiritual Parenting, Alpha. Alpha is like if you want to explore faith in Jesus and you've got questions. There's Divorce Care, Get Out of Your Own Head. There's the Book of Ephesians. There's some more even. There's Midweek Meetup. There's Vital Scriptures, Grief Share, Overcoming Anxiety During COVID, Biblical Heroes, and Men's Fraternity. And those are only some of our groups. But where you see in the chat right now the groups button coming up, would you click that button? Would you hit that button? Would you go actually get yourself in a group? Because you can choose one of 2 ways. You can choose panic, or you can choose peace. And one of the big difference makers for you is going to be when God puts you in an association with other people who could share their breadcrumbs with you and could say, look, you can trust me, you can trust God. He's done this for me, he'll do it for you. I hope you'll get in a group. It'll be a life changer for you, if you will. Here's the bottom line. I want to share this with you today. Trust is the only reliable path to peace. The only way you can get there is trust. Who do you trust? The biggest test of your trust is what you do with your treasure. And God is asking you and me to surrender something today. You know what it is? He's asking us to surrender the object of our trust. What is it that you're trusting in? Is it Prudential? Is it State Farm? Is it Farmers? These are great companies, right? But they can't take the place of God. Is it the stimulus check that you're waiting for? Is that what you're trusting in? Is it the job that you have? Is it the home that you live in? Is it the savings that's in your bank account? Is it your wit and your speed and your intelligence? Is it your work ethic? What are you trusting right now? Because whatever it is, it's not enough. Because we're seeing these things drop left and right. And the people who have peace have decided something. They've decided to take the trust that they put in those things and decided to place it instead in somebody so much more trustworthy. His name is Jesus. His name is God. And he's the one that says, I want to be like a father to you, who helps you, who provides for you. It's like he's saying, I'm the God of the universe. Let me write your checks for you. And all that I'm asking for is your trust, to surrender your trust. I'm finding in my life that when we're in times like this, a lot of times it's also a test of our vision. Where are we headed as a person? Who are we going to become? Who are we going to be in this moment right here? And what I believe is that a better vision comes from a better provision. That better vision for our lives comes from better provision in our lives, where we go like, God is taking care of me so I can trust him. And I'm so excited about what's next, even though I don't know what it is, but I know him, and I know his character, and I know he's so good. And so I want to ask you right now, if you would bow your head with me, if you would be somebody right now who goes, you know what, I want to be that person that learns how to trust in God. Would you bow your heads right where you're at, wherever you're watching from? Bow your heads right now. I want to pray with you, and I want to help you take a next step. What is your next step in your life? Where's God leading you right now? This time of financial anxiety, are you in a place of peace, or are you on a path toward panic? You can make a decision right now. I want to encourage you about something. Some of you are in a place where you've heard this kind of message about trusting God in this area of provision and resources. You've heard this before, and maybe you've even stepped into it before. But maybe today is the day you go, I want to go all in on this thing. I want to be a person that actually does what this widow did. And that because she gets to see the miracle, I want to see the miracle. I don't want to just eke by in this COVID thing and come to a place where I still don't have enough. I want God to show up in my life. And so, God, I'm giving you right now my trust. I want to be a person who says yes to you, even in this place of financial generosity, to trust you, to let you provide for me. God, show me how to do this. I'm stepping out today to do this. Help me to be a person that sees you in my life providing. Maybe you're with us, and wherever you're watching from, this is new. The idea that God would be like a provider to you, that he would be like a father to you, that Jesus is inviting you to put your trust in one who could say, you're worried about a lot of things that are beyond, they're above your pay grade. That only God could be that kind of provider, not even your bank, not even your insurance company can handle that kind of task. So today, maybe your step, right where you're seated, right where you're watching from, is to say, Jesus, I want to trust you. Do you know that 47 people in the last 2 weeks have made that same decision? Maybe this is your turn. Maybe God brought you here today to get that freedom that goes, I don't have to be in charge of my own destiny. I don't have to be everything in the world. I don't have to know everything, and I don't have to figure everything out. God can be my Father. Jesus came to make that possible. He came to forgive us of our sins, to cleanse us from all of our unrighteousness, and to put us back in relationship with our Creator so we could experience that joy. And where you're at right now, I want to lead you in a prayer so you can do that. Just tell him right now. In fact, as you're telling God this right now, I want you to know that we're here with you. And I want you to know we want to pray with you. And so I want you to see this button in the chat. I want you to see this button and commit your life to Christ right now as you tell God this. Tell him, God, today I'm making that decision. I'm taking the jump. I'm trusting in you. Jesus, I believe in you. I'm giving you my life right now as best I know how. I don't even know what all that means, but I know this. I know you love me. I know I want that love. And I believe that your payment on the cross was enough for me. Thank you for washing me from my sin. Thank you for giving me new life. I receive that life today. God, help me to learn day by day how to trust in you. And God, would you do something for me this week? Would you show up in the most miraculous way so I can see that and so I can share those breadcrumbs with somebody else? We thank you, God, for being our Father. We love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.